Hello girls and boys, welcome to Elementor tips and tricks video clips. This time we're gonna kick some ass to those naughty Elementor columns, and I really mean it by saying that. Have you ever been frustrated because of the fact that there's no way to set column width to 100% for desktop devices? And then when you switch responsive mode to tablet or mobile, everything works just fine, magically. Let me show you what I mean. I'm gonna drag and drop spacer onto the section first, just to initiate a new column. Alright, spacer is transparent by default, so let's get some color to it. Advanced, background panel, and let's pick the color, background color for our spacer. Alrighty, we want to end up with having 3 columns, so let's duplicate our column 2 times now, along with the spacer. Right mouse click, duplicate. Right mouse click, duplicate. Alrighty. Let's now change the background color of other 2 spacers, and I'm gonna do that for the sake of better visual experience. There's no special reason for doing that. There's no other reason for doing that. And the 3rd spacer, let's make it, I don't know, red, purple, whatever. The color doesn't really matter here, okay? Now, here's what I was talking about initially. Oh, I forgot to add some margin to top and bottom of my section, just to make it, let it breathe a little bit, so to speak. Alright, here's what I was talking about initially. What I'm up to is to have the very first column be 100% white and the other 2 columns 50% each, placed one next to another. So I'll highlight the first column, layout tab, layout panel, and let me try to enter 100 into column width. 100. Whoops, once again 100. Well, it looks like it doesn't work. It ends up being 10% white each and every time. So it looks like 100 is forbidden number here for some reason. And if I now try to delete that silly number that I don't need at all, I cannot. It always gets back. So the only way to fix it is to reset column structure. I'm gonna highlight my section, layout tab, and reset structure. That's how I fix it. Alright? So the point is, don't even try to set 100% white column. However, as I said, if you now switch responsive mode to tablet or mobile and do the same thing, it all works just fine. So switch to tablet, highlight my first column, and enter 100%. Okay? It just works. 50 for the second one and 50 for the 3rd column. Alrighty, that's exactly what I was about to have for desktop devices. And let's try with mobile. Okay. Now you have an option to keep these 2 columns side by side or make them stretch full width. I'm about to keep them side by side just to prove what I was talking about earlier. Okay. So highlight my second column and let it be 50% white. 50% white. As you can see, it all works just fine. But for some reason, I cannot do that for desktop devices. I don't know the reason. Now you can say that I'm an idiot because I could simply create 2 sections, one on top of another, inside of only one single outer section column. The topmost inner section should have only 1 column, while the second one should have 2 columns. As simple as that. Yeah, why not? Let's triple the amount of HTML code for such a trivial task. I mean, I could understand the point if we are not dealing with Flexbox columns, but we do. That's why it's totally stupid. So let me do that idiot-proof way, because obviously we ain't got no other choice. Not yet. Not yet. Alright, I'm gonna create a new section atop of the existing one by clicking that plus icon. Next, I'm gonna drag and drop intersection. Then I'm gonna duplicate my intersection widget and delete second column here. Alright, let's add some margin to top and bottom of the section itself. Alright, well, let's fill our columns with spacers because I want my second example layout match the first one. So from now on, I'll just duplicate spacers from the first example and then drag and drop to corresponding columns. Alright, so right mouse click, duplicate, drag and drop. Likewise, duplicate, drag and drop. And the last one. Alright, it looks like problem solved with our new layout, but it's not. It's like sweeping the dirt under the carpet, and you're gonna see why very soon. Now, luckily, we also have an option to solve our problem by including custom CSS code. So when everything else fails, CSS is like a universal remedy for all. What if I tell you that only one single, simple line of CSS code can solve the problem of how to make 100% white columns for desktop devices? What if I tell you that one simple line of CSS code can turn you into the master of Elementor columns and layouts? In case you don't believe me, just keep watching. But before I get to the point, I know I talk too much, but anyhow. Before I get to the point, I'll provide some useful information so you know why and where things take the wrong turn, so to speak. First of all, let's try to set column width by using CSS code. I'm going to highlight my first column by clicking on the column icon, Advanced tab, Custom CSS panel, and I'm going to type in selector. What is selector? Selector is Elementor shortcut that we use to refer the target element instead of typing a bunch of hard to read or remember classes. Alright? And then I'm going to type in width, which is going to be 100%. Alright? Now my second column, Advanced tab, Custom CSS panel, selector once again, open close curly brackets, and width is going to be 50%. As I said earlier, I need my first column to be 100% white, the other two should sit below 50% white each, placed one next to another. And now finally my third column, I'm just going to copy paste this code because it's going to be identical for the third column. Alright, there it is. But you can see that there's no significant change with regards to our layout, even though there should be. So why should I expect the change at all? Because Elementor's column layout system is Flexbox based. What is Flexbox layout? Flexible layout module was introduced as a part of the CSS3 standards, made with an intention to improve alignment, direction, and order of items inside certain container, even if container itself is of unknown size. Flex container has one very important characteristic, which is that it has the ability to modify width or height of all of its child elements or items in a way to fill its own available space in the best possible way at any given screen resolution. Unlike the block or inline layout, Flexbox layout is direction based. That's what allows designers and developers to achieve complex layouts with less code. I'll repeat, to achieve complex layouts with less code. And with that being said, and considering the problem we have here with that simple layout, it should be pretty much straightforward that something is wrong with Elementor's columns, at least for desktop devices. Now, I have to admit that I'm not a Flexbox expert, but I know a few things. And in this case, my common sense tells me that my three columns are not wrapped properly by the container, Flex container more precisely. So there's a Flexwrap CSS property that is supposed to control the layout of Flex container child elements in a single or multiple rows or lines. By default, it'll simply keep them all in one single line, just like here. You can stack a million of items if you want, and all of them will end up shrunken one next to another in order to fit Flex container width, regardless its width. And that's exactly the problem we have here. Columns do not collapse in spite of their width, which means that Flexwrap CSS property doesn't wrap them, it doesn't work, or is simply unset. Alright, who's the container daddy of our three columns here? That must be section, right? I mean, it's obvious that our three columns are wrapped by the section. Well, not exactly. If we take a look at the page source code, let's find our section, inspect element, All right, here's our section. If we take a look at the page source code, you'll see that there are two extra div elements after the section. They are actually siblings of the section, nested one inside another. So here we have our section, then we have Elementor container and Elementor row, then our three columns. First column, second one, and third column. So the very true container of our three columns is not a section, it's element row indeed. Now that we know it, all we gotta do is to change the way children or child elements get wrapped. I'm gonna highlight my section first by clicking on the grip icon. Then I'm gonna open Advanced tab and expand Custom CSS panel. I'm gonna start with selector. In this case, selector refers to the section itself. However, we need to reach deeper levels. So we need to reach Elementor row, hence the fact that's the real flex container of our three columns. Now, after selector, I'm gonna type Elementor container and Elementor row. Okay, open, close curly brackets. Flexbox property that we are looking for is Flexwrap, as I said a moment ago. So I'll type Flexwrap now, Flexwrap, and the magical keyword is wrap. Voila! As you can see, it's all good now. Default value is unwrap, which made our columns shrink instead collapse. So that's the magical line I was talking about. You're gonna realize how magical that line really is very soon. Let's check responsiveness. All right, responsive mode, tablet, looks fine. Mobile, as you can see, it remains unchanged, which sometimes might be okay and sometimes not. Depends on a content type, readability, etc. Anyhow, it can easily be fixed. You'll see it soon, okay? In just a second. So, if you wonder about drawbacks, well, I don't think we should call them drawbacks, but there are certainly a few things that you should be aware of. And the first drawback, so to speak, is that by using our method, you can forget about Elementor controlling columns width and responsiveness. It can only be done by our own CSS code, which is not that bad because it means more flexibility, at least for me. For example, if I want my two bottom columns take 100% width of the viewport on mobile devices, I'll have to add simple media query. What is media query? Media query is the clause according to which browser knows how to render certain class or element with a class at a certain screen resolution. So if I want my column to be 100% wide, I'm gonna type in the following. Okay, let's highlight our column. And I'm gonna type in add media, open close bracket, open close a pair of curly brackets. Then I'm gonna type in max width 767 pixels. All right, next I'm just gonna copy paste this chunk of code with one little exception, and which is that our width is going to be 100%, and I have to add one important thing, which is important rule. So what all that I wrote here actually means. It tells browser to execute this CSS code as long as screen resolution is 767 pixels or less. And the important rule is here to override existing column width, which is 50%. It wouldn't work without important rule, okay? So let's do that with our second column. I can copy paste the code here because our two columns use identical code. All right, that's the first quote-unquote drawback. That was the first quote-unquote drawback. Second one, if I add new column, it'll use default width. Add new column, it'll use default width, which is 25%. So if we have 3 columns in total here in our layout and I add 4th one, default will be 25%. Why? Because Elementor counts columns and divides 100 by the number of columns in order to make the total width match 100%. 4 times 25 is 100, right? We have 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4 here. Okay, and if I add a new column, both columns that we didn't specify the width for are now 20% wide. Why? Because 5 times 20 is 100. Alright, we have 5 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the point here is that whenever new column is added, width has to be assigned manually, so to speak, by using custom CSS panel. Or otherwise, if you decided to take control over columns this way, our new way, it has to be this way only. No mix and match. Let's delete them because we don't need these 2 columns. Delete. Now that we know all the drawbacks, let's highlight some advantages. Why not? And the first one is definitely the amount of code generated by Elementor. Our 2 example layouts do the same thing or achieve the same goal, but if you take a look at the page source code, it's really easy to figure out that our new matted uses at least 4 times less code, so the page will load faster. Let's take a look, okay? This is our target layout, and that's so-called idiot-proof way of doing things, okay? Let's count how many levels deep we have to drill in order to reach our columns. Here's the section, then the Elementor container, Elementor row, and here are 3 columns, okay? Let's see the idiot-proof way. Section, Elementor container, Elementor row, Elementor element, Elementor column wrap, Elementor widget wrap, now the section, then the Elementor container, Elementor row, and here's our target column. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 levels deep, all right? Let's compare it to our new method. 1, 2, 3. It does make sense, right? Alrighty, next. Our new method allows you to define column width in any CSS supported unit. Pixels, EMs, reams, whatever. And columns will simply conform available container space. So I can set my second column to be, let's say, I don't know, 300 pixels wide. Let's make it, okay, let's make it 300 pixels wide. It's 300 pixels. Let's now make our second column, I don't know, let's make it 60 EMs wide, 60 EM. All right, as you can see, everything works just fine. The columns are doing just fine. If my third column is, I don't know, 40 EMs, and there's enough room or space in the same line, it'll stay there in the same line, okay? And that's it. That's basically it. But on top of everything, there are also a couple of tips that I wanted to mention as well. So if you have time and patience to watch, I'll be glad to share it with you. We can set up our Flexwrap method as a global property. All right, here's our Flexwrap method. That's what we want to set as a global property. So I'm gonna click Settings button, Advanced Panel, under Page Settings, and I'm gonna type in section, greater than symbol, Elementor container, greater than Elementor row. All right, open, close curly brackets, and I'm gonna type in Flexwrap. Flexwrap is going to be wrap. All right, that will actually make all of column wrappers used on page or document, this is our page or document, behave on a way you've seen before, and in the same time it won't interfere with Elementor defaults. Just take a look at our idiot-proof example above. It keeps following Elementor rules. So the point is, If you set Flexwrap as a global property, you won't need to define it for each and every section over and over, because sections will simply inherit that property. Why am I using greater than symbol? Because in CSS it translates to select only the first or direct sibling or child element of the parent element. Even though Elementor's document structure is strictly defined, I want to be safe. So this is some kind of a precautionary measure, something like better safe than sorry, so to speak. You can easily align all of your columns vertically if you didn't know. Okay, let's highlight the section. Remove Flexwrap property because we define it as a global property now. By applying justify content flex property to our Elementor row flex container, you can group align all of the columns vertically. We have to change column widths first in order to be able to see the effect. So let's make them not to fit side by side. Let's make first column to be 70% wide, and the second column, let's make it 40% wide. All right, now highlight the section again, and I'm gonna type in justify content. You can use start, center, or end keyword, which corresponds to left, center, and right hand side. Start is default, so in case you plan to align columns to left hand side, no need to specify it. But if you plan to align columns, let's say to center, you're gonna simply enter center. So this is it. And if you plan to align columns to right hand side, you're gonna type in and. As simple as that. All right. Global media query. In order to save some time, resources, and make workflow easier, it's a good idea to make certain things uniform. For example, it's kind of normal to have all the columns 100% wide for mobile devices. And instead of creating separate media query for each and every column instance, like here, we can simply create the class with an assignment. And the simple assignment would be make me 100% wide whenever mobile viewport is reached. Here's what I mean. Click on settings once again in order to define our global media query. Advanced panel, advanced tab, custom CSS panel, and I'm going to define my media query. Add media, open and close bracket and a pair of curly brackets. Then I'm going to type in max width 767 pixels. Then inside, I'm gonna enter Elementor element dot, and I'm gonna define my class, my custom class, and it's gonna be named like, I don't know, make me full width. All right, open close curly brackets, width, which is 100%, and important rule. That's it. What does it mean? First of all, it tells browser to execute this chunk of CSS code whenever screen resolution is 767 pixels or less. Next, now allow me to actually briefly explain the point here. Elementor element is the class name assigned by Elementor to every column, section, or wrapper. Make me full width is our new custom class that is about or yet to be assigned. Please note that there's no space between these two classes. I did that on purpose. It's called class chaining. My media query is supposed to target the element which has both of these classes. There can be more than just these two classes, but the point is that these two must exist at the time. That's the point. Now, important rule is here to override existing column with value, whatever it is, whatever was defined before. So it wouldn't work without important rule. Now, let's get back to our two columns that require full width on mobile devices. My second column, let's get back columns width of 50%. I messed things up. with my previous vertical alignment tip, 50%. Alrighty, so select again my first column, open Advanced tab, Custom CSS panel, and delete my existing media query. I can now delete it because it's defined globally. Let's do the same for the second column. Alright, let's check responsiveness. Tablet, alright, mobile, not yet. Why? Because we didn't assign our new class to our last two columns. Here's how I do it. Highlight the column, Advanced tab, Advanced panel, and enter the name of our custom class, which is Make Me Full Width. There it is. I'll just copy paste for my third column, Advanced panel, and paste. There it is, as simple as that. So the point is that anytime you need any column take full width when mobile device breakpoint is reached, simply assign Make Me Full Width class to it. For those who want to take an extra mile, there's a possibility to make columns even nastier. How? Well, if you didn't know, you can drag and drop intersection widget to any of our columns, which in turn opens up a whole new spectrum of layout possibilities. For instance, I'm going to delete my spacer from here and drag and drop intersection widget instead. Now, my intersection widget columns inherit Flexwrap property that we have defined as a global property, which means they are capable of doing everything that their parent columns are capable of. Alright, so for example, if I want to make this column be, I don't know, selector, let's make it 100% white. Why not? It's 100% white. Okay, duplicate, drag and drop so you can see clearly it's 100% white. Now the second column, let's make it, I don't know, let's make it 355 pixels wide. Why not? There it is. It all works just fine. Okay, duplicate, change the color. So go ahead, play with options and do something really cool, because you have, from now on, you can do that. And that would be it for today, girls and boys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it wasn't too long. If you enjoyed, give me a thumb up, subscribe, share, comment. If you do that, I'll continue making these videos as usual. Stay tuned.